Recorded live, this is the All About Nothing podcast. The views expressed on this program are the opinions of the host. Some content and subject matter may not be appropriate. Listener discretion is advised. Listeners are encouraged to follow the show at theallaboutnothing.com for links to social media and more. Listeners can call the show at 803-672-0533. Thank you for listening.
All right, welcome to another episode of the All About Nothing podcast. I am Barrett Gruber, joined by Zac King. We are recording episode, this is a bonus episode, number 14, actually. Welcome, Zac.
Thanks, Barrett. Yay for bonus episodes.
Yeah. It's the day after the South Carolina primary, and I wanted to take an opportunity to just real quick maybe tell some of the events and things that I saw yesterday, which was appalling at times. So Zac knows I will work as the clerk at one of the polling sites in the county that I live in, Lexington County here in South Carolina. And yesterday we actually worked at a new polling location that we had not worked before because they didn't have anyone to work it. And it is deep inside Lexington County. And when I say that it is deep inside Lexington County, it is about as Republican as it comes. There's a few Democrats out there. We did have a few Democrats voting in the Democratic primary, and I have to keep.
How did you know they were Republican? Was there a tell?
Yeah, there was a tell because they had to select which primary they were voting in. It's an open.
Well, not that. I thought you meant like pulled up in a 1995 Chevy Silverado with a rebel flag hanging off the back, and they're like, "We're here to vote."
Yeah, I couldn't see their vehicles, but I can tell you that. There were a number. Well, okay. So first of all, South Carolina, we have on the books a law that says that you have to have photo ID. This particular precinct is deep within South Carolina's Lexington County, and it is a very Republican district that we were working in yesterday. But we have on the books a law that says that you have to have a photo ID in order to vote in a primary or an election, and ultimately, that's pretty easy. I mean, it's a law that's really designed to secure the election as far as who's voting and making sure that they are the individual that is voting. But it's also a disenfranchisement. It's designed to create a situation that could potentially cause paranoia in people. And I say
having to have a photo ID.
Yeah. So essentially, how scrutinized do you think the photo ID is? And this is just you having been in voting in an election. How scrutinized do you think when you hand them the photo ID? Like, how in depth do you think that as a poll worker that we look?
That it looks like you to as far as you can tell, and then I could verify their address.
Yeah. Essentially, that's the case. So I
would say it needs to be an official state ID, like if not a license, driver's license, then one of those state official IDs that are like have the green line on them or whatever.
Right. So yeah. So essentially, we look to make sure that the picture looks like you. We don't scrutinize it to the point that you have the exact same color hair, that your hair is in the same fashion that it is, that you're wearing glasses, anything like that. Like we don't scrutinize it to the point to the nth degree. We do validate that the name matches, that the address matches what's on the poll book, and that we do make sure that your birth date is matching. Because we do have instances, we do have instances where people come in and it's like a father and son, and one's the senior, one's the junior, but junior and senior don't show up. The only thing that I can look at and say, oh, this is the junior, is that his birth date, it falls well before the senior. So right. I'm validating that as well as the picture. And it was amazing to me because this was a much more Republican conservative area. It was amazing to me the number of people that came in to vote in the Republican primary yesterday that had an issue with showing me an ID. Like they didn't want to show their photo ID. They would hand me their voter registration card, which, in an emergency, then I can validate that at least your voter registration card indicates you're supposed to be voting here. But I still need I need an identification card with a photo on it because that's the state law. That's what's required. And I was amazed at, a handful of individuals Out of the 369 that voted yesterday, out of a potential 4,100 people that could have voted yesterday, I was amazed at the number of people coming through that had an issue with showing me a voter ID or a card, some sort of identification card with a photo on it. Like, they had drawn the line that was an issue for them.
That's so ridiculous. You're making something that is relatively simple difficult.
And not only that, so photo ID it's not necessarily new in South Carolina, but it is right. Definitely something that has come along in the last 15, 20 years as part of this, we're gonna try and secure up the elections thing. What's really crazy about that is that mostly that comes from the right. That is a Republican talking point about elections and making them more secure by having people required to use photo IDs in order to prove they are who they are. And one woman yesterday who did not want to hand me a photo ID, I said to her, I appreciate you handing me your voter registration. I just need a photo ID. And she looked directly at me and she said, "That's not for me." And I said, "No, it's a state law. It's for everyone. I just need a photo ID to prove you are who you are so I can match you against your face with the ID in the system." And she said, "Yeah, that law is not designed for me." Like, flat out, like, absolutely knew that this was a law created to disenfranchise minorities, blacks, Hispanics, that sort of thing. And I said, regardless of who it's designed for, they make us check everybody. So I just need a photo ID.
Was she saying that because she was basically insinuating that because I'm white, that's not my law?
Yeah, that's exactly what she was insinuating. Now, okay, I'm making the assumption that's what she was insinuating because I don't know that she had the IQ level to tell me exactly that. But I think that's the assumption I'm supposed to have on that. It's crazy, right?
Really? Yeah, that's insane.
So
insane.
Yeah, the voter ID thing came into effect, and that's not an issue that I'd had working at other polling places before. That's not ever been something that's come up. Like, it's and no one. The only thing that I've ever had come up was something I discussed back in the 2020 election, which was that one individual could not tell me where he lived based on the identification. He lived outside of the district or outside of the precinct that he was voting in. And when I asked him if this was his current address, he said no. I said, "Can you give me your current address to at least indicate that, yes, you live in this precinct, so you would vote here?" That's none of your business. Oh, you're killing me, sir. You're killing me. It's
why do no one's suppressing you, man. Yeah. No one's out to get you, brother. I don't understand that at all.
Yeah, I tell that same story every time we poll, we work the polls, which is, if someone in Lexington County who generally is white in race says that I am trying to oppress him by not allowing him to vote, I'll just look right in the face and say, "Look, sir, you're a white male in Lexington County. There is literally no one here in this county that is concerned with oppressing your vote. We know where your vote is likely going."
You know how to stop that. Give him the hillbilly Hail Hydra. Make America great again. He'd be like, "Oh."
Honestly, if I had the mentality that I was going to try and impress anyone's votes, I just wouldn't volunteer to work a polling location, because so that was one of the things that we learned yesterday in Lexington. They had to combine several precincts because we did not have enough people to work them. Like, there were not enough people to work the precincts, so they literally had to combine precincts into locations, which forces people to have to drive further than they would in order to go vote. And ultimately, that's one of the reasons why I keep doing these elections. They are an absolute exhaustion. I mean, I am so tired. It starts at 5:30 in the morning. It actually starts the day before in setting up, and then doing the setup the day before, and then being there at 5:30 or 6 o'clock in the morning to finish setting up, opening the polling location, and then honestly, if you're working the poll books, it's basically every time somebody comes in the door, you stand up, and then when you're done with them, you sit down, and then you send them back to the room to go vote, and it is an endurance race. And if I wanted to oppress anyone's vote or prevent someone from voting, I just wouldn't volunteer. I mean,
I get that.
That's
you give a crap.
yeah. And ultimately, that's the reason I keep doing it, is that I feel like if I don't, then it's going to disenfranchise a bunch of voters that potentially would need that to vote.
I wanted so badly to vote, but I was the only one to go pick up my mother from the airport. And it took a while.
Yeah.
And I'm talking like an hour of traffic trying to take her home to Chapin, where they're doing a 3-lane highway now.
I can't even.
But they have the whole highway is 2-lane with concrete barriers the entire way. So if your car breaks down, guess where you're staying? Right where you broke down, and you're in everybody's way.
You remember how I lost that kayak? It was
there.
It was in it was in that section.
Oh,
a kayak. My kayak came off the top of the car, and like literally it stopped traffic. And the only reason traffic resumed was because a guy got out of his car with vehicles stopped behind him, grabbed it and threw it over the barricade so that it was just out of the way. And that was, yeah. I'm definitely confused as to how it is that, contractors.
That's the way you do that.
Yeah, this is how construction gets done. That
I think they do it because if they leave a gap for, say, a vehicle to pull off, you're going to mess up their freshly paved thing on the other side.
Yeah.
But, dude, at the same time. And I get construction's a hard job. I've done it.
Oh, of course.
I worked marine construction for like 5 years.
Yeah.
When you do it, you got to put up the proper signs to give everybody a notice. The reason yesterday was not a wreck, it was because they were putting all the traffic into 1 lane right by peak exit.
Yeah.
Now, you would think you would start putting go merge left signs way back.
Yeah,
they did not do that.
Close the zipper a little further from where it needs to be closed.
They were closing it to 1 lane at peak exit. You got the get on the left, merge left line at the 1 mile marker looking at peak exit.
Oh, Lord. Yeah.
So how are people to know?
That's ridiculous.
It's awful. It's just bad. That's bad management.
I'm always disappointed in basically every construction project that goes on, whether for the roads here in South Carolina, because it almost always seems like you can. So of course it's government contract, so it goes to the lowest bidder. But in the end result is it winds up going over budget and it goes over time. So
every time
it doesn't seem to matter which contract you go with, it's still going to cost the maximum amount that it possibly can.
And that's we're looking at almost $5 a gallon, right? Like close $4.50.
Right.
And some speculation that it could eventually go to 10, which I kind of take that with a grain of salt.
Yeah, I would
but that would be crazy. But they're even talking about still adding the additional gas tax.
Yeah, was it 2 more cents? 2 more cents to the 26 to 28 cents for the state gas tax.
If you just fix our roads and not add more roads that you're not going to fix, we'll be cool.
Yeah.
And then when we passed where they had it off, no construction workers were constructing.
Of course.
At all.
Of course.
No construction going on.
Lanes just closed for the safety of
they're all circle jerking over there on the side of the road. Literally, not even like a stand-up meeting. They're just shooting the shit.
Yeah.
Like 10 of them in a circle.
It's
laughing, having a good time. It's like,
yeah. And I think, and I don't know how to fix that, but I think it's some sort of regulatory thing. Like at some point, why isn't there some sort of a state inspector that drives through and says, what are we paying for if you guys are, if you're off the clock now? Or, if you're off the clock, why haven't you taken all the cones up so that traffic can flow at least semi-normally? Yeah,
when they start at like 10:30 p.m., that's perfect, and work until like 3.
And that's how
something.
Yeah, that's how it almost used to always be. Was that in the evening at some point when traffic was at its a low point after normal traffic hours, then that's when they would start construction. They start putting the cones out, they start diverting the traffic so that I don't know. It's
now they're like 5:30. Let's block the roads.
Yeah.
Get that bridge. Bring in the equipment. I don't understand it. And again, I'm not crapping on construction workers. It's just
I don't think
the logistics of the whole thing can be better than this. I promise.
I don't ultimately I don't think that it is on the fault of the construction workers. I think that it's just odd way to me of handling it. So.
Yeah, it was really odd, and it definitely ruined my voting time. But I mean, you got to pick up your mother from the airport. It's kind of a mandate.
Yeah, I imagine so. So Henry McMaster's did win his primary, so he is now again the nominee for South Carolina Republican Party for the governor role, gubernatorial campaign, I guess is what he's running. He did get out of 95% reporting currently, he got 306,000 votes. His closest follower was Harrison Musselwhite, who got 61,000 votes. Not close remotely at all. Joe Cunningham did win the Democratic nominee for the governor role with 102,000 votes. Total reporting votes, Republican reported votes were 367,000 and some change. Democrat was 181,000 roughly. So
those are not good metrics.
Yeah, not great if you're looking for a Joe Cunningham win come November, just based on that. But again, it's early. They haven't really begun these statewide campaigns yet. I mean, they have sort of, but it's not been it's not in full-fledged like go mode.
Well, and Joe has my vote. I'm telling you right now. That's who I'm.
Well, I mean, how could you? We've had now 6 years. No, how many years? 6 years of McMaster's, Foghorn Leghorn, and I can't look at South Carolina and say that there is anything definitive that I think that he has done that has been a positive influence on the state. I can't.
He hasn't done anything.
Yeah, I don't. There hasn't been any at least before that, and I've discussed it before with Nikki Haley, and I may have discussed it yesterday while I was working the polls. But Nikki Haley has really one thing that she can hang on her hat, which is that the right cliche?
Hang her hat on.
Hang her hat on. There's really only one thing she can hang her hat on, and that is that she was governor when legislature voted to remove the Confederate flag from the State House grounds. And that's one of those things that she
probably thinks there's more.
Well, yeah, and that's what I was going to say is she thinks, I guarantee you, she thinks that is an accomplishment that people should remember her for. But
right.
The God's honest truth is she didn't campaign anywhere in the state to get the flag removed. It was merely a reaction to the shooting in Charleston of the 9. And
yeah, we're not going to do anything about guns or protecting anybody, but we'll take the flag down.
Yeah,
that'd be good.
That was essentially it. And really, I don't think that even the legislature can hang their hat on it, the Republican-led legislature, because it wasn't. They didn't. I think that they were recognizing that not having professional and collegiate sports activities here in the state that could raise money, like the super regionals or I guess we do get the baseball super regionals, but regionals. Which one do we get?
We can have both, and we have had both.
Okay, but we didn't have an NCAA championship. Like that was always diverted somewhere else.
The basketball tournaments never came through.
But we're fully capable of hosting those.
Yeah, we still were able to host the supers and super regionals and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know. Maybe it was after. I really don't know.
Yeah, I'm not sure. But we know that South Carolina was being prevented from hosting major tournaments and things because ultimately the flag was flying at the State House grounds. And I suspect that from a tourism standpoint, which was that the state can make more money if we take the flag down, the NCAA will start hosting, which they haven't really yet. But if we take
basketball has
basketball, but we still don't have a football bowl here. Like there's no reason why Williams-Brice couldn't host an 80,000 seat or an 85,000 seat. It should be hosting a bowl game. Like
it definitely could, yeah.
So, but we still haven't seen that come. And that was part of that. I think that was mostly the incentive of removing the flag for Republicans in the state, which was, well, now the NCAA can't say that they won't host a bowl game or something like that. So,
right.
And I'm pretty sure that's one of the reasons that we don't have any real professional sports in South Carolina as well. But maybe the day
because if I remember correctly, there was years ago there was supposed to be The Panthers were looked at to come here originally, if I'm correct. I could be wrong. But then there was another NASCAR track, I believe they were trying to build closer to here in Columbia.
Yep. I think it was supposed to. I think so. When I moved here, there was discussion. When I moved here from Atlanta, there was discussion of the potential of having a NASCAR-sized track. That means a 3 or 4 turn track that was anywhere between 1.2 and 1.3 miles as far as the track, being built somewhere between Columbia and Aiken. And that was going to be so you basically had Darlington on one side of the half of the state, and then there would be this other track that would be on this side of the state. But ultimately, one of the things that I heard the reason it hadn't happened yet was because we were still flying at that time. We were flying the Confederate flag on top of the building. So
I wonder if that had something to do with the Fireflies finally getting built.
I mean, I don't know. We always had the Bombers were here, and then when the Bombers left, they went to Greenville. So I don't know that Major League Baseball hasn't had a real issue with the flag.
No, I know that, but when it comes down to it, the Bombers and the Fireflies are miles apart.
Yeah. Well, they're the same level. They were both high or low single A. The Bombers just moved to Greenville and became the Greenville Drive with Boston, and I'm not sure who they're with now. They may still be with Boston.
I guess I just look at the Firefly Stadium and go, "This is nice."
Yeah, it is nice. It's a nice stadium. I'll be there tomorrow night. But yeah, ultimately, I think Cunningham. I think there's more potential. I mean, under Governor Hodges, we got the lottery. Like that was something that happened under Governor Hodges, which was South Carolina got a lottery an education lottery that actually provided scholarship money for students going to university, college, Midlands Tech, technical schools, that sort of thing. So that was something.
I got lottery funds my first year at Tech.
I used it when I was going to Midlands Tech.
The best thing that came from that is I no longer had to hear that commercial and see that commercial with Bubba. Georgia has the lottery. What are you doing, South Carolina? I'm just like, I got to see this one more time. I swear.
I'm gonna have to
10-year-old Zach, 11-year-old Zach going.
That's hilarious.
Yeah, we can look it up. But funny fact, I went to a Georgia South Carolina football game in '99 with my grandmother. He was sitting right behind us.
No way. That's crazy. Well,
my grandma's like, "Look, it's Bubba." I'm like, I hate him on the commercials. I don't want to see him now.
Well, and I will at least say this for Governor Sanford when he was governor, that he was fiscally conservative enough to veto bills regardless of who sponsored them or who how the vote came across. But if it was a Republican bill that came across that just seemed absurd and was just an absurd amount of money being spent somewhere, he'd veto it. Now, he's also one of the first Republican governors in South Carolina to have his veto overturned by a Republican legislature. So, I don't know.
He was not the first one to be cheating on his wife and flying to France and stuff.
France and Brazil and said that he was walking the Appalachian Trail. You know what?
Yeah.
And if he's going to walk the Appalachian Trail, fine, whatever. Yeah, I don't know all of the details on the relationship that he had and whatever it was, but you also I've heard the rumors that Jenny Sanford wasn't an angel either. So
sure. Well, it's been 25 years since we've had a Democratic governor in Jim Hodges. Mm-hmm.
That was since he's been elected.
Yeah,
because Sanford was. Because Hodges served for 4 years, is that right? I can't. I
believe
remember.
So.
And then Sanford was elected, beat Hodges. I want to say it was like 2002 or something like that. It's been
and
24 years.
Yeah, and the thing is too, the Jim Hodges had that one interview where he admitted he smoked weed one time, and no one let that go.
That's crazy. That's absolutely insane.
No one ever let that go.
I don't understand that.
Like, okay, is this really? Yeah, the rest of them were boofing with Squee.
Right.
All of them. I'm like, come on, I don't want to hear it.
Let's see. The other thing that came out of the primaries yesterday, and what I was hoping was not going to happen, which is there is going to be a runoff, mostly because of in South Carolina's superintendent of education. We have two Republicans that couldn't get 50% of the vote. Manis and Weaver will be in a runoff come June 28th, which means I then have to work another day at the polling.
You don't have to, Barrett.
I
You can just be there and be like, I was not even supposed to be here today.
So here's the reason that I am going to do it. I don't necessarily care about the Republican running for superintendent, even though one of them is probably going to be the winner because they're running on this CRT thing, anti-CRT. But our Senate nominee that we're looking for in the Democratic primary, there is going to be a runoff between them likely, which is Catherine Bruce and Crystal Matthews. Both of them are running to take out Tim Scott. And ultimately, we're going to have to, either one I'm fine with. But we're going to have a runoff. So Democratic primary runoff.
It can't be much worse, right?
Yeah, agreed. Absolutely agree. So we'll have a Democratic primary runoff for the Senate seat. And then we will also have a Republican primary runoff for the Board of Education, superintendent of the Board of Education here in South Carolina, which I am still dumbfounded by education here in South Carolina. Still dumbfounded.
Well, excuse my ignorance, but when do we get the chance to usurp Lindsey Graham?
So Lindsey Graham comes up in 2026. That is the next opportunity that Lindsey Graham will be running for election. So, and that's ultimately that's another thing I have an issue with. Lindsey Graham will be running for what his fifth or sixth consecutive running.
Who was even before him? I can't even remember.
It was Strom Thurmond. He took Strom Thurmond's spot.
Oh, it was. It's been that long.
Oh yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. Strom Thurmond was who Lindsey Graham replaced. So it's
that's sinking in is just fucking terrible. We just feel terrible with terrible.
Yeah. Yeah, and how Lindsey Graham continues to get elected despite the fact that he had a failed presidential bid. He basically took just a load of crap from Trump and then turned around and now sits in Trump's lap or vice versa. And
Trump, can I come down to Mar-a-Lago with you?
He's down there all the time as far as the pictures show. But yeah, I mean, so Lindsey, I don't know. It's ridiculous. I don't get it. You have the only thing that Lindsey Graham has to hang his hat on is his involvement in the committees as far as like he's in the Armed Forces Committee. So that's kind of a big deal. I mean, I don't know what Lindsey Graham's credentials are when it comes to being in the Armed Forces. I feel like he's pretty much just been a career politician his whole life. Or like a upstate lawyer, maybe. I don't know.
I can't imagine him like even shooting a gun, which is kind of funny. Like,
even though that's all the party is about.
Yeah, it's like he's like, yeah, we need guns, and we need good responsible gun-toting owners.
Yeah.
Lindsey, do you carry? Have you fired a gun before? Like, I just want to see it. He'd break his wrist or something, I'm sure.
I will say one of the things that was one of the things I noticed when at working the polls yesterday was there were several individuals that came to the door, saw the sign on the door that said no concealed weapons, and then they took off. Like they had to go put their gun back in their car, which I don't know how long it's been since someone's been allowed to carry a gun into a polling location, but it hasn't been since I've lived here. And the idea of walking into a polling location with a firearm seems unnecessary. And so this is another story. A woman who came in to vote, when she was signing her name on the e-poll book, she said to me, the sign on the door for the concealed weapons is the wrong sign. And I said, yeah, but everyone understands that you aren't allowed to carry a firearm into an election polling location. And she said, yeah, but it makes it a lot less safe in here. And I said, so here's, and of course I can't keep my mouth shut. You know this. So I said to her, I said, well, ma'am, I think that if you were to have brought a firearm into this location and other people were to bring a firearm location, if a fight breaks out, that innocent people are going to wind up getting shot as you all are just shooting at each other. And she looked at me, she goes, I know how to use a gun. And I said, I'm sure you do. It's pretty much just a point click thing. I know. I shoot. I have plenty of firearms that I know how to shoot as well. My concern isn't the technical use of it. It's more the specific
skilled application of it.
The skilled application of using the firearm. So, but I think at that point she knew where the two of us stood on the subject of carrying a gun into a polling location.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was just weird. Like the number of people that would walk up to the door have to go back to their car. And it was hot yesterday. I mean, the rain helped, but it was hot. But the number of people that walked up to the door, saw the sign, and then had to go all the way back to their cars to put their gun away is just...
Well, let's face it. Most of them would act like the Uvalde police department and not do anything anyway.
Oh, for sure. They would duck and hide. They would find somewhere to go and hide. And ultimately, I think that is something that needs to be considered. I guess the last thing I wanted to bring up before we wrap this up was I did see that today specifically we have 10 Democrats and 10 Republicans that have come to an agreement on a responsible gun ownership and laws that we could potentially see built into a bill that could get moved on to the Senate, but it sounds like, or the House, but it sounds like they may get something done before the 4th of July. Like we could potentially see a bill signed into law by the 4th of July. I don't know what the boyfriend loophole is, so I have to look that up to see. Do you happen to know what that is?
If it's what I think it is, it's if you've been charged with like domestic abuse, but it's not a loophole.
Yeah, they keep referring to this as a loophole, so I'm gonna have to look that up to see exactly what it is. But it does require that if you're under the age of 21 that you have some sort of mental illness check to make sure that there's not an issue there if you're under the age of 21. I ultimately think that this eventually leads us to the potential of having a law in place that doesn't allow anyone under the age of 21 to purchase a gun. But then again, if you're in the military at the age of 18 or 17 and a half or whenever you can join the military, you get a gun, you can carry a gun then. So, I guess, but you're doing it under the authorization of your constitutional swearing in order to carry that gun or whatever.
So this says the loophole allows dating partners to evade gun laws spouses and live-in partners must comply with.
So is that, I guess so that sounds like that refers to maybe potentially just gifting a gun to somebody or
maybe
giving someone a gun. I'm not sure how that works. I'm gonna have to look that up.
In response to mass shootings, a bipartisan group of senators tentatively reached a deal on gun bill that would expand red flag laws, spend more on mental health, and close the boyfriend loophole that allows some domestic abusers to buy firearms.
Interesting.
So it's a good thing to close it. So.
I figure anything that is slowly working towards limiting the number of firearms that can be sold to people that potentially should not be purchasing or should not have the ability to purchase a firearm. I think that's a good thing. I think that creates the right scenarios in order to continue a progressive march towards real responsible gun purchasing and ownership. Ultimately, I think that our federal government should disband the NRA. I think that the NRA should absolutely be closed. And most of those people should be convicted of war crimes. Honestly, as far as the people
is the NRA considered a private organization?
I have to assume that they are. Yeah, that well, you can't trade them publicly on the stock exchange, so they probably, I imagine that they probably are taxed, but they're almost completely, memberships aside, they're almost completely funded by the gun manufacturers. Like the money that goes into the NRA for is just pushing the message that the gun manufacturers want pushed. That's it. That's all the NRA is for. I've said it before. The only reason the NRA exists is not to strengthen your right to own a gun, but it's to strengthen your right to buy a gun. It's two fundamental differences. And anyone that believes differently is crazy.
Wrong.
They're just wrong. I don't know how else to describe it. So, all right. Well, I won't ramble on anymore. But I appreciate you joining me, Zach. This was it's nice to be able to talk about some of the things that I've seen, so that when I see my therapist, that he's not just sitting there going, "Oh God, this again."
I'm forwarding him my notes so he'll be prepared.
I appreciate that if you do that. That'd be terrific. All right. So again, we got the election. The election is coming up on the primary runoff will be on June 28th. I don't have any information as to early voting on that. I would suspect that they're going to give it at least a week because since there will be a Democratic runoff and a Republican runoff, the turnout for these things is going to be so little. It really is. Like yesterday, easily out of the 4,000 people that could have potentially voted in the election, less than 9% showed up to vote, which is astonishingly low.
When you go to do the polling, do you find like most of the people that are there to help are the same people that are always there with you?
Yeah, I have the same team every time.
Okay.
This time we had an additional girl who was great, and I've already asked her if she'll work with us again. She's said that she would. So yeah, it's generally the same crew. I carried them from one polling location to this one, and I'll keep them because I mean they work well, and I don't have any issues, so I'll take them.
Yeah.
Unless you want to,
don't fix what's not broken.
Unless you want to jump in there, and then I could add you to our team. So.
Not my calling, but maybe one time, who knows?
I will say this, that if anyone is interested, you can go to scvotes.gov and you can find applications to be able to do that. If you're listening to us in another state, and you have an interest in making sure that voting is open to everybody and it's available as close to them at home as they can be, then just check out, search Google on what your state needs as far as applying for that, because they do pay. It's not a lot, but it does cover your time for most people, especially if you're just working a minimum wage job. It'll cover the day and it covers the training, so it's something to look into.
You probably wouldn't like me there anyway, because my responses wouldn't be great. If someone starts complaining, I'm like, you don't have to be here. You can go home.
If they let me record the things that my react, like honestly, I have a pilot in my head of the same documentary style as The Office, where I'm just jimming the camera every single time. Every single time I hear something crazy, I would just jim the camera. That's it. As always, thank you, Neek the Geek, engineer and producer, owner and operator of GOT Sound Studio. Check out details on how you can utilize his talent and production expertise at gotsoundstudio.com. Thanks to Muff the Producer. You can follow him on Instagram at Muff the Producer. Thanks to Shiana Rivers for our intro and outro. Follow her podcast, Who You Callin' Holistic. As well, thanks to Trent Clark, aka DJ Lonzo, currently entertaining the main course in Columbia, South Carolina, Saturday nights. Make sure to go by, have a good time. You can contact Trent for all your entertainment needs. Trent at theallaboutnothing.com and on Instagram at TheRealDJLonzo or by phone 803-262-7982. If you enjoy the show, consider becoming a patron by visiting our website and clicking on the link at the top of the browser. That will take you over to our Patreon page. You can find details on how you become a supporter. You can check out our benefits there, or just consider a donation so that we can continue to bring you this nonsense. We enjoy doing it. We enjoy you enjoying it. As always, you can follow us on Facebook. Just search for All About Nothing US, on Twitter and Instagram at AAN_pod, or find links to all of our social media and available podcast platforms by visiting theallaboutnothing.com. If you'd like to be heard on the show, you may call and leave us a message, 803-672-0533. If the time between these episodes is too far apart, you can fill that time by checking out our partner podcasts. Zach and I host What the Pod Was That with Carrie Simmons, available on most of your podcast platforms. You can visit whatthepodwasthat.com for links and details. Carrie and Chrissy host Status Macabre on most of the podcast platforms as well. Find details at statusmacabre.com. As well, you can check out our own DJ Lonzo's Top 5, hosted hosted by Trent Clark, available on most of your podcast listening platforms. Till then. All right, Zach, thanks for being here on the show. Everybody be safe and
have a week.
This The All About Nothing podcast is recorded live from the Maddie Johnson podcast studio at GOT Sound Studio in Columbia, South Carolina. The All About Nothing podcast is produced and engineered by Neek the Geek, owner and operator of GOT Sound Studio. To support the show, please visit theallaboutnothing.com for links to social media, merchandise, and more. Become a patron of the show by following the Patreon link at the top of our page. The All About Nothing podcast is an entertainment product of Barrett Gruber. Special thanks to Zach King, Trent Clark, Muff the producer, Neek the Geek, and you, our listeners. Please subscribe, rate, review, and share. If you're on YouTube, please hit the like button and the notification bell. Thank you for listening.